Hi everyone and welcome again to my channel AI with Muzammil. Today in this video we are going to be talking about how you can take input from your console or terminal, and also we are going to be learning about different logical operators. So let's go right into it. Okay, so let's go right into it, and the first things first, we're going to start with activating our environment to have this habit of best practices. So the command for that is const activate my first env, which is the name of the environment that we created, and we can see that the prompt has changed. Now we're gonna work on two things. The first is how to take input from the console, and in Python there is this function called input that you can use uh, to take input from the console. And you can also enter a prompt. For example, you can ask the user to enter your name, and then you can assign whatever they enter from the console to a variable. So you can, let's say, assign it to my input. Okay. So whatever the user will write here in my, it will come into my input, and then you can also try to see what they have printed. For example, you can say print what is my prompt. So we can start the program by saying Python, and then the name of the file is input and logical operators. So it says enter your name, and for example, you can say the name is Sophia, and you can see that the name has been printed here. One thing that I would like to mention here is that this input function, the input is always a string. Okay, so in Python, whenever you use this input function, whatever comes into this variable, the data type or the class of this input is always a string. So you can also check what is the type of my input. You can try to print it out, and we can see here that when we try, let's say we write Sophia, and when we try to see what is the type of the input, it says that it's a string. So in case you would want to use numbers, for example, um, let me use another one. So for example, we try to enter num1. So enter num1, and then you can also have num2. So you want the user to input two numbers, and then you would like to add the two numbers. So num1 plus num2. Uh, Now, if I try to uh, do it as is, it's not gonna add the two numbers. So if we run it, so let's say I enter the number one as one and the number two as two. So we expect that the two numbers we added should be one plus two equals three. But instead, since now this is a string data type, what this plus does is basically concatenates the two numbers. So that's why it appends the second number to the first one, and that's why it appears in one, two. So in order to use the number, the integer data type, what you can do is convert this number to an integer format. And similar goes for the second one. You can also append this or convert this into the number integer data type. The way to do it is you use this integer function to convert it. And when we try to do it here again, we can see that the number one is, let's say, one, the number two is two. We get the sum of three. Similarly, you can also use this float data type. So in order to, take into account float variables, 2.3 something or whatever, 0.9. So you can see that the we have now added the sum to a 3.5. And that's how you take inputs here in Python. Then the second way, before going that, we can comment this out so that we have clear screens. Then we are going to talk about logical operators. And in Python, there is a very easy way of handling things. So for example, let's start with an example. Let's say we have a price of a car, price of a car, which is, let's say, 2000. And now we want to see if the price of a car is less than certain threshold. So we can say if uh, price of a car is less than 100. Okay. So what this will do, this statement over here, it will try to see if the price of the car is less than 100. So if it is less than 100, it's going to print true. And if it's not less than 100, it's going to print false. So we expect here, I'm sorry, yeah. So we expect here that it will return false because the price of the car is not less than 100. Now, if we say if the price of the car is less than 5,000, we expect that it's going to return true because the price of the car is indeed less than 5,000. We can also combine this with multi logic. So we can also say return true if both of these statements true. For example, we can say if it's greater than uh, let's say 3000, and we can try to run, and then I can explain how it works. So we have an overall output of false. Now how this works is that it first checks this and then checks this as well and then takes an OR logic operator between them. So in terms of here, how it works is that it's, for example, it checks if the price of the car is less than 500, which it is not. So it's gonna return false. And then we have an OR logic operator in the center, and then it's gonna check if the price of the car is greater than 3000, which it is not. So it's gonna return false as well. And false or false is also true. So for the OR operator, if any one of the logics is true, it's going to return true. Sorry, I meant false. And if all of them are false, so we're going to have a false. So now if we can, for example, change it and we can say that if the price of the car is greater than 1000, so now in this case, again, this statement returns false, but this statement is going to return true like this. So we will have an output of true. And we can verify it over here. We can check uh, that it returns true. Now, similarly, we can also try to see an AND gate. Uh, Now, how AND gate works is basically it checks this first, so it's going to return false, and then there is an AND gate in between. We have an AND or AND operator, logical operator, and then it also has this price of car, which is actually greater than 1000, so it's going to return true. But for AND gate to return true, all of the statements should have a true, but we have one false, so a result will be false. And we can verify this here as well, that we have an output of false. And that's how we can check these statements. One final way of doing is we can also have a combination of, let's say, these. We can say or uh, price of car is equals to 2000, let's say. Okay, and we're gonna work on that later, but I can show it to you how it works. So it basically returns true. Now, how this works is that we have this and this. So we have something like false and true. And then we also have or, which is this. And this basically returns true. So equal means it compares this with this amount. So is the price of car equals 2000? And we know that yes, the price of the car is actually equal to 2000. So it's going to return true over here. And that's why when we have a false and true, it's going to return a false. But then we have an or with true. So we're going to have finalized true output here. Um, yes, so this is pretty much it from the logical operators. One last thing that I should also talk about is uh, let's say the data type. So we can also check what is the type of the data of uh, this variable. So we can say is the type of variable int. Okay, so that's the way how you check it. So type of the variable is int. And we see that this is indeed an int here, okay? Because this is a whole number, and then we would expect that this would return actually true. So this basically returns true because the type of the this variable or the class is indeed an integer. We can also check if it is an str. Now we know that this is an integer, so it's not an str, and we would expect that this returns false. And we can check it here that this returns false. The other way to check and finalize it is also to use is not. So we can say the price of the car or the type of this variable is not str, and we see that this would return true. So there's multiple ways of checking these inputs to use these logical operators and to get the task done. But you need to know that which way is optimal and which ways you can use. So there is a variety of ways how you can do that. Yeah, so that's it, pretty much it from this tutorial, and I hope you have learned something. And I'm gonna see you in the next video. Thank you.